All right, we are going live. It says now they give you a little message that says you are live. Before I just used to look for the red thing and the clock and the ticker. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another installment. Watch this, Sue. Another installment of Get a Clue in 52 for Speakers with Sue Mathieson. Now, normally this is where I would hold up a book, right?
I
And I
will
feel
hide.
you've got yours. You've got yours. This is cool. But I feel so naked. I'm going to hold up my coaching journal just so I've got something in my hands here. But I'm actually going to do something silly. I've never done this before, but this early in an installment of Get a Clue in 52, I've never this early gone to the visuals. But here we go. Check this out. So instead of holding up the book, I'm going to just pop. Here we go. There's the book cover, like full image book cover. Can you see it, Sue? So everybody out there
It's
can
there.
see it. Yeah. And so this is cool. This is the fourth Get a Clue in 52 that I've done. This is the second time I've had a co-author, but the first time that I'm collaborating on this level with Sue Mathieson and from Australia. And it's just, more so than any other Get a Clue in 52 tips book that I've done before. This one, in addition to being for speakers, right? And by the way, and non-speakers alike, I think 60% of the book can be really useful for non-speakers as well, but all of it's packaged for speakers for sure. But in addition to, focusing on speakers versus coaches or entrepreneurs like I've done in the past, right? There's overlap there too. What we're really trying to capture, and I didn't set out to do this, but when we agreed to do the project, Sue, and I'm going to ask you to comment on this, when we agreed to do the project, it wasn't top of mind. It was really just the content and getting the tips out. But what emerged in our collaboration was really, what I'm hoping we captured was the powerful beauty, the lovely power of the mentor-mentee relationship. So I'm going to turn it over to you, Sue. Now that everybody's seen the back cover, and thanks to Patty Blakesley for writing the description for the book, and thanks to those that have offered testimonials for the book. The first couple pages has several testimonials from all around the world of coaching and mentoring that I've given to emerging and aspiring speakers. But Sue, I'm going to stop sharing right now and dish it over to you to talk about this power, the lovely power, right, of the mentor-mentee relationship. And what's your perspective on all that? Did we get it? What was the process like for you? And then we'll get into today's tip.
It was a great process, and it came out of, as you say, it wasn't intentional, but it came out of the writing of the tips and pulling the content together. It seemed to fall into that quite naturally, that was a reflection of how we sort of, when we were meeting together, the conversations we'd have, the questions that I would ask as a mentee to you, and looking for guidance, looking for when you were coaching me specifically. And it made sense to mirror that in the text that we were putting together. Mm-hmm. And so yeah, I agree. I really hope that we have captured it. It's the first time I've written in that sort of dialogue format.
Yeah.
So what I enjoy is that as we meet here each week, we talk through the tip itself, but it then lends itself very easily to having conversation afterwards and almost teasing that out even further.
Yeah, well, that's back to the whole concept of the series in general, that these tips are just tips. They don't, get to the bottom of anything. They just scratch the surface, and they're almost intended to pop the cork off of the bottle that other people need to go drink elsewhere. I mean, we hope we get invited into people's lives and businesses to help them implement these things. But we think that there's value just in and of the tip, in and of itself, to get people thinking and get people talking. And as we tease these things out, certainly it's great to learn from my own tip once I start dialoguing with somebody smart about it, right? And so you've been wonderful, Sue, on this project, and we're just getting started, it feels like. But here we are, March 1st or 2nd, where you are in Melbourne. Right. And it's tomorrow already for you. Yeah.
Yeah. It's Saturday for me.
I love saying it's tomorrow already for you. Yeah. Where we're at here, and we understand with Get a Clue in 52 books, there are always 5 categories. So for us, we're in section 1, playing the integrity game. And today's tip number 9 from the first section, playing the integrity game. Let me get through this really quick. Section 2, which we're going to start in 2 weeks. right? Because next week is the last tip of section 1. So today's the first day of March, but next week is the last tip of section 1. So there's milestones that we're achieving in the year here, right, as we progress. So section 2 is bring out your brand. This is where, you know, we're creating structural integrity, foundation for our career as a speaker with these first 10 tips, which we'll review and get into in a minute. But then after that structural foundation, then we can bring out our brand. Like, it's like building a house, then paint and decorate the house, right? Then step number 3, be fearless. Invite people over to the house. Okay. In other words, what we're really going to focus on in step 3 is the speech, writing the speech. 8 steps to prepare ourselves to be fearless in our public speaking. What I mean by fearless is conversational. We never want to read word for word. We never want to try to memorize every word in our speech. Too many things could go wrong. We don't want to off-put the audience. We want to have a process that puts us in a position to be ourselves at all times. So we have 2 opening tips in that section, and then following 8 tips in Be Fearless are all about 8 steps to getting on stage anywhere and being yourself fearlessly. And then among those tips, one of them is so important that we went deep on it. The 5th step to fearless public speaking required its own section in this book because there's so many things to highlight on. So it's in step 3. It's in section 3. Where am I? Oh, wait, save. It's in section 3 and section 4. That's the meat. That's the heart of the book. That's like, you guys, if you know, you can skip and go right to that if you want to work ahead. But this is specifically about building a speech, writing a speech, and doing it in a way that prepares you to be conversational yourself, to where you're not bound by any one prepared word, right? Where you can be yourself. I can say 6 or 5 + 1 or 7 - 1 or 10 - 4. When I'm reading the room, I'm so prepared. Have such command of my material that I'll be able to read the room and have brain space, bandwidth available to actually interact and form messages and dialogues in my head based on the situation, then integrate that with whatever I've prepared to deliver. So I don't have to like ignore the room or fail to interact with the room because I'm so stuck in a rigid way with every single word that I've prepared. I'm just ready to be myself. So it's really important to understand that fearlessness, that conversational public speaking. I don't mind making mistakes or misspeaking or tripping over myself because I'm being myself. I believe the audience will forgive all of my mistakes if I have the courage to be myself. So then we get into that in sections 3 and 4. And then we're going to finish the year with 12 tips on practice building. And we did this last year with my book, Get a Klu in 52 for Coaches. I had a lot of fun singing 99 bottles of beer on the wall to that theme, 12 accountability. So to that theme, we go through the 12 accountabilities of building a business or a practice, right? And so, you know, we think we can speak, and then we learn how to speak, and we put a speech together, and we have a keynote. But now do we want to build a practice around speaking? If so, then now we need to get off of speaking and get into all of the basics about building a business, the 12 accountabilities to move from an income earning hobby to a practice. And I'm going to stop there because I've been doing what I've been doing for 17, 18 years, and I still don't call it a business for a bunch of reasons we'll get into at the end of the year. So Sue, why don't you take us through a review of the first 8 tips that we've covered, and I'll support you visually, but let's hear your voice. And what I'm going to do, since I've opened up the presentation to look at the book, I've got a little special, let's go ahead and review the first 8 tips that we've covered prior to today. And this is what I'm bringing up visually. This is the PowerPoint that I use to support the keynote for the integrity game. I believe soft skills make strong leaders. And we're talking about motivation, accountability, and engagement. But forget that. Let's get into, never mind all the stuff I do in the keynote. Let's go ahead and review the 10 tips that we've covered so far, which basically makes up the integrity game model. Sue, go ahead. What do we start off with?
Yeah. So, I mean, we did this, as you were mentioning earlier, to build that structural integrity as for ourselves before we even consider writing a speech. And we start with purpose. Why is it that we want to be a speaker? But we look at 2 components to that, and it was autobiographical. So it's the making money, it's the collateral for marketing purposes versus the biographical. What is the audience going to get out of what we bring to the situation where we're speaking? Then that integrates with packaging our gifts. How do we differentiate ourselves? Why would someone want to have us on that stage as a speaker or in an online session, leading that session and presenting what it is that we want to talk to. What's our competitive advantage and the differentiation? What sets us above the average? And it's the integration.
or below. I had a conversation. I don't mean to
yeah.
interrupt, but we had a conversation just yesterday how some sort of rock bottom. I was interviewed on a podcast yesterday, and I'm going to put it out there. He's talking about the bitch slap moment where you get woken up, and he doesn't mean to be offensive or anything. We're like, whoa. And he's talking about it. For him, it was a judge when he was 17 years old, where it started at 17 years old. He started his path to sobriety. He's like 55 years old now, and he was interviewing me yesterday on a podcast. But we talked about that, that rock bottom or that bitch slap moment as below average, right? But what a gift that he's now been sober the rest of his. Anyway, go ahead and continue, Sue.
Yeah, absolutely, because it's a wake-up call. And a lot can even come out of that too. A lot of learning, a lot of material to talk to actually in that journey. But it's the integration of those purposes, those gifts that naturally take us into that potential.
Yep.
And we talk about the chronology of potential, which is vision, mission, and objectives. Vision being the farthest out that we can see, and it's a description of what we can see. And then mission is, from a time perspective, is not quite as far out, but it's the or we start to see the achievements. It's a statement of arrival that shows that we're on the way.
Destination, arrival, achievement. Yeah.
Yeah. And then coming back from a time perspective to those annual objectives. And for speakers, some examples of annual objectives, might be writing a keynote. How many followers have we attained? We set a target, and so they might be some quick examples of annual objectives. But flowing out of that, then we lead into goals, because we want to break that down into, and it's SMART goals. So it's the SMAAR represents.
It's not a typo.
The what?
It's not a typo. Yeah, it's on purpose.
It's not but that represents the what, the T being time. So what by when?
Yeah.
And it's breaking it down, those annual objectives, breaking them down into quarterly goals, 30-day goals, but it gives us something to work toward. And then we look at the strategies, tactics, and resources to achieve those goals. Strategies being the plan, tactics are the how are we going to get there, and resources the tools.
Yeah. Now it's funny here, Sue. I'm looking at the PowerPoint, the keynote. I have different subtext when I'm delivering the keynote as a whole. Of course, we've created different subtext for these tips to be specific to the book and the speakers that we're trying to support. But I still think it's appropriate to tell my joke. Tony Robbins says, "Success leaves clues." Never mind that he spells it wrong. Like, okay, you think you continue?
So true. But then from there, we talked about our words and our commitment, recognizing that our words in themselves carry vibration and energy. So as a speaker, is what words are we using? But also, what are the expectations in what we're committing to? Are we setting for ourselves? And are we meeting those? Are we staying consistent in delivering those commitments that we've made, or are we falling short?
Yeah.
And so we talked about bringing that this whole integrity framework has that accountability that it comes out of it, but it's the message that certainly you started out with and continue to bring to this is that accountability is non-threatening, and this framework, as we move through it, brings that fantastic piece to it, and there's a level of comfort, I guess, that as we work through and answer the questions of the framework, we can do that without being threatened. But we're opening ourselves in a really strong way to accountability.
Mm-hmm.
And with that, we moved into taking action. And we talked about being able to do that so that you're building a habit. And one of the phrases that I love that you've used for a long time that I've worked with you is having that next observable action.
Oh yeah, the NOA, the next observable action. It's not rocket science, but what an important moment of pause to get out of the general task that needs to be completed and a micro focus on the next observable action that needs to be taken to complete the task. Without being able to focus on exactly what's right in front of us, we may never get started. Sue, thanks for bringing that up. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. But out of that, we learn, we grow, which was our next tip. And it was that continuum of learning. And I loved going back over the recording because I only stayed on for such a short time last week. But the conversation you were having with Margot, and which was fabulous, and where you were talking about making peace with the fact that we will make mistakes.
Yes.
And that was in the tip dialogue was how I opened it up, because I was asking the question, how do I manage not wanting to look silly on stage? And this was what you responded with, that it's about taking action, and but doing, because we're doing it within this framework, we can acknowledge that we're going to make mistakes.
Yeah, you put it simply, just to be my silly, happy Friday jovial self. To me, first of all, I'd rather have 10% of a million than 100% of 10,000, right? This is just the way I think. And, to be efficient like that, I'd rather make peace with looking silly than spend any time trying to prevent looking silly. I only got so much time in the day, right? So am I going to put time into preventing looking silly? And God knows that that's not going to prevent everything I do to try to prevent looking silly isn't going to prevent me from looking silly, right? Because that's in the eye of the beholder. If I got an audience of 100, I suspect at least 13 of them will think I'm silly, even if all 87 of the rest of them don't. Makes sense, and that has nothing to do with my preparation or whether I am or am not. It's an adjective, and it's a making things up, and it's a, you know what I'm saying, right? So why don't I just put the same amount of time in to be comfortable if I look silly?
Yeah.
Like it's like I got these 5 minutes. Do I invest them in preventing looking silly, or do I invest them in making peace with the inevitability that I'm going to look silly, right? So back to you, or this was last week, and it was fun for when Margot came on. Like the timing, I couldn't have. I wish there was
perfect.
At least. Sort of. I wish there was at least a minute of overlap, but it seemed like as soon as she was it was like. I knew I was talking to Margot, but I was almost like, "Where's Sue?" It was almost like poof, like you were gone and she was there. And for me, I never moved. I was it was just an interesting perspective. You watched the recording back. I haven't watched it back yet, but here I am. I'm totally engaged with you, right? I'm totally, and then, and I don't know what it looked like, but to have the same. I don't know. It was like. I don't know how to explain
it. Worked, actually.
It's like I was just I don't know, in some weird Andy Warhol film or something like that. Like, Margot, are you sure you're not Sue? Because I don't think anything has changed in what I'm saying or what I'm doing right now. But you look different, and I know your name is different. But it feels like I've been having the same conversation with the same mindset. I don't know if that came through in the recording. I'm going to have to watch it, but I thought that was interesting. And now here we are in tip number 9, which is accumulation of accomplishments. Any other comments or anything before I go ahead and into a word for word read?
You go. You go.
All right. Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, before we get into the word for word read, I love resetting the 9 or the, how we got here. We're playing the integrity game. We're trying to establish structural integrity for any of our endeavors as a speaker, right? And that's what we're doing. And let me go ahead and I'm going to get into presentation because I don't have the book with me, but making peace with looking silly. What I do have is the PDF of the book. And so what I would like to, and tell me, can you see it, Sue? Now, can you see it?
Yep.
Okay. So just real quick shout out to Stella, who's in the Philippines, who did the interior design. I want people to see like how we got here. Here's Sue and her dialogue and her questions and her promptings. And then here's me with my Klubi snacks broken out. If I've said anything memorable or worth writing down, but I just, for, potential readers out there, pick up the book. Get it.
Yeah.
It's good. She did such a good job with the interior design. I wanted to make sure that I was showing some of these things. I'm scrolling quite a bit, but I also want to give, for example, the introduction of each section. I love that. Section 1, playing the integrity game. And you can see this is a keynote that works in the boardroom or in the locker room or right in the C-suite. The integrity game is applicable everywhere, and we wanted to include it in this book. And so introductions by both Sue and myself, the dear reader, us from the heart, reading, writing to you guys and thanking you, letting you know. I want to give a shout out to Lisa Reed, who wrote the foreword for the book. Lisa Reed is the CEO of the International Speakers Network and founder of Get Speaking Gigs Now. And so we just, and of course, we've got some dedications in here, but also I want to say thanks to the many people around the world, in fact, that took some time to do some testimonials. So, Newport Beach, Gwen and Janine and Tom and Cornell all the way in Australia, Danielle in Australia, Jennifer in Michigan, Morgan in Ireland, right? All these people all around the world have the experience that you had, Sue, where we were immersed for a day or 2 days or 3 full days together to really dive deep, and scuba diving, if you will, into the mentoring experience, the coaching relationship. So we want to capture that. All of these testimonials are specific to me helping people with their confidence for speaking, their speech writing itself, their brand that they're going to write the speech out of, or actually getting on their feet, practicing speech and getting help with the nonverbal delivery of it all. What do I do with my hands, Jeff? Okay. Right. So there's a lot going on here. And as I'm pulling up the book, and I just thought, since I'm showing the visuals, let's go ahead and show some visuals. So as we get back to tip number 9, here we are. Accumulation of accomplishments. So here we go. The 9th question set the integrity game asks us to answer is also my 9th tip for you or speakers. What are your accomplishments? What accomplishments have you accumulated in your life, career, or business? Now, as easy and fun, especially by comparison to the other questions on the model, as I think these questions are to answer, not everyone has such an easy time smelling their own roses. Many people are so hard on themselves or overly humble, like pathologically afraid of being proud of themselves, or so focused on the next level that they don't have time or interest to acknowledge anything they've already achieved. Others have some yeah, but voice in their head that negates achievements as achievements. Quote, anyone can do that. Quote, you got lucky. Quote, it wasn't as good as you wanted. Quote, it wasn't as good as someone else's, or any of the yeah, buts that prevent us from making peace with how awesome we are. And I'm going to pause the word for word here. Sue, isn't this wonderful? Before, we wanted to make peace with how silly we look. Well, we've got to be fair to the other side of that coin too. If we're going to be fair to heads, we got to be fair to tails. If we're going to be make peace with lightness, we got to make peace with darkness, right?
Yeah.
You're right. Yin and yang, male and female, masculine and feminine, up and down, right? The desire to fly and the recognition of gravity, all of that, right? I just think that's pretty cool. Okay. So we need to make peace with how awesome we are. How about that? All right. Moving on. Anything you have learned is an accomplishment. Anything you have experienced is an accomplishment. Another of my favorite Klubi snacks is knowledge plus experience equals wisdom. And there's always wealth in the wisdom. Specifically for speakers, if you make a list of 100 things you have accomplished, we can easily find the 20 or so accomplishments that have really good stories to them. Things we have learned, experienced, overcome, and yes, ultimately achieved. Remember earlier when you were asking questions like, where do I start and which topic is best and so forth? Well, your accomplishments are like an endless supply of content for your talks. Create so many options, clear list of accomplishments and stories that you begin to see preparing for a speaking engagement not as a bullseye you have to hit, but instead a warehouse style, wholesale grocery bulk items store that you go shopping in for the right ingredients for the moment. Make sure your accomplishments are always in stock when preparing to speak or market yourself as a speaker. Well, there you go. I like that tip. Wow. I haven't read that tip since I wrote it. And thank you for the promptings that bring the integrity game to life in this context, Sue. So let me kick it back over to you. What say you in response or in interaction with this tip? Accumulation of accomplishments. Get it out of your head. Let's see it. First of all, make peace with how awesome you are so that you can actually get your accomplishments out ahead onto paper so that then you can what? Now you've got a whole treasure trove of content you can pull from to weave into your speeches. So I'm excited about this tip.
Yeah, I really like that, having those accomplishments in stock.
Yeah.
And I like the prompting to spend the time to go back and smell the roses. And as you were just saying, get them out of your head, get them down on paper. And there's stories that go with those accomplishments.
Yeah.
And that's what so you might just have the accomplishment as the trigger, but it's the story that you can bring out of that in whatever detail might be appropriate within the context of a speech. That's where there's so much value to bring to your audience.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask you for example, but I'll go first. Like I've been coaching for so long, I forgot that I actually accomplished things to become a coach. Like I did complete 3 consecutive boot camp coaches trainings, but I forget about that because it's so 17 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? Like now I focus on, well, I'm an author and a speaker and a trainer and all these other things where I want to, but I almost forget, Coach Jeffrey. But I've been Coach Jeffrey for so long, I forget, wait, I did do 3 consecutive boot camp style coaches trainings. I did coach 5 people a week who also coached me for 8 weeks straight. And I did do the best in the class and I was given all the leads these are accomplishments. But then I think about, well, wait a second. I remember putting it on a credit card, right? So I paid more for it than it cost because, right. And I remember not asking my wife, right?
Yeah.
Like, we trust each other. So she comes home and I said, Mary, and she's like, you did what? And it pierced my eardrums. Right. And I remember like, oh my God, like, no, honey, it's going to be great. It's going to be great. When I learn how to do this, it's going to be amazing. I'm just 8 weeks away from making tons of money as a coach. Right. I'm like 3 weeks into the program. I'm like, oh my God, this is an eat what you kill industry. And they promised me all these leads, but oh my God, I'm going to get the bottom feeder leads that they've already tried to coach for the people that didn't enroll. And I'm paying dues. I'm like, oh no, my marriage is on the line. And oh God, this isn't necessarily what I thought it was, but I need to make it what I want it to be. And this is all of a sudden there's a story about my resilience and my fears and my taking a chance and my trust in my marriage and my marriage on the line and all this stuff. What a great story to bring to stage if I want to encourage people to get into my coaching and leadership training.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Anyway, you know what I'm saying? Like it just comes to mind. Just like, I'm thinking about it. So what do you have an example of an accomplishment that you've actually forgotten about, but now that you're focusing on it, now that I'm asking you, something from 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, something you haven't thought about or talked about in however long it's been. But now once you remember it, there's a story there that you know would be powerful from stage.
Certainly the biggest one that comes to, in terms of accomplishment is recovery from depression. And having had 10 years where I couldn't work. You know, this to look at me today, I'm somebody who's...
You would never know. You were on your feet speaking the other night. Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I had a period where to get out of bed and actually make my bed was an accomplishment. In that day, I don't know how I was functioning. There was these basic level of survival going on, and yet I've been able to come through that and get the help I needed, build the skills to develop within myself, to build that resilience, to not only get back to the level that I was previously, but to go way beyond that and to be who I am today.
Yeah, when we talk about looking back at the accomplishments, what's the story there that would be really cool from stage to help us get our objectives for speaking accomplished, right? We can go deeper, 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 deeper into strategy for building story, right?
Yeah.
There's a 12-point, for example, there's a 12-point hero's journey, and it's a powerful structure to tell your story, being prompted by the 12 points, because now the audience can start to imagine themselves in your story, and that's deep level persuasion, right? Mastery stuff. And it's ethical and it's professional, but it's structured to get these stories identified first and then work them in a way where they really bring the goal, the intention, the purpose of your speech right there to the audience, where, because stories are attention gating, they're captivating. What I love about stories, Sue, have you ever like been like on your way from one part of the home to another, and the TV is on in the background, and you're walking by, you're on your way to go do something, but you're walking by and you notice, and there's this really dumb movie on TV? Like just some Saturday afternoon. Oh, that movie, I've seen that movie. Oh, that movie's dumb. I've seen that movie twice, and it was like dumber the second time than it was the first time. Have you ever had that experience where you're saying that, and like 2 minutes later, you're still standing there watching it? You've seen it already, and it's dumb, but you're still standing there watching it. Why?
Yeah.
Stories are powerful, and if we can accumulate our accomplishments, now we've got a treasure trove of story that will keep our audiences engaged, even if it's silly, even if it's dumb, even if they've seen it before. When we can tell stories, we will keep our audience attending to what our messages really are. What else might you have to say about accumulation of accomplishments?
I think it's learning. It's and this sort of covers quite a few other tips that we've talked about. Coming back to that continuum of learning that we were looking at last week, even, is the going on and doing further education that builds a skill level and means that I've got a repertoire of skills that I can reference when I'm in a particular situation. It's even the accomplishment of writing this book. Going through that process and looking at the reminders of all the learning that I've done over the years, but being able to pull that together into a collective piece that is tangible. It's there, it's in print, black and white, and then I can then share with others and use that as a tool, which I was able to do.
Go ahead.
Yeah, which I was able to do the other night. I was at a dinner, and it was they call it an unnetworking situation, where it's very well set up, and it was 24 people sitting around a table having dinner together, but each person has 5 minutes to get up, and the theme was abundance. So it was about what can we each bring to that group individually that we can give. And it was a pleasure to be able to have copies of the book for everyone who wanted one. And I talked a little bit to that, but specifically I was talking about the framework of the integrity game, and I pulled that out into...
Can you indulge me a little bit? I don't care if anybody out there in LinkedIn, Facebook, YouTube, or any of the channels that we're streaming this on, I don't care if you enjoy this or not. Normally, I'm all about making sure this is valuable for you guys, but will you indulge me for a second and put that right up into the camera?
Well, I'm unblurred, so I don't...
Lean forward. Try to lean forward with it. Anyway, yeah, it's the model. And what's on the back?
So I just popped my details on the back.
Perfect. Postcard. Okay, thank you for indulging me. Continue.
So it was a little postcard. It was a little
Yeah.
postcard, and I just went through each of the points, which is what we're talking about in this section now. We're up to point 9, which is down here, and gave people the opportunity to have a conversation with me afterwards, or to follow up and have a conversation about how they might be able to apply this in their own situation. There were 2 ladies that took that opportunity up, and the questions and why because there were little cards where there was a separate board and they could go and put it up, but it's relevant to this tip that we're talking about today. They one of those reasons was they have an interest in speaking but don't know where to start. Now, the tip that we're talking about today, accomplishments, what a fabulous place to start.
Yeah. Start there.
Write out all your accomplishments. See what the story and what we're talking about, the stories that go with getting to that accomplishment. What a fabulous place to start. What do I talk about when it comes to speaking?
Yeah, that's an important point that you make. Let me just interject in it, and then I'll let you continue. The integrity game, even though we go point 1, then point 2, then point 3, then point 4, we introduce them in a linear fashion. One of the things that I want everybody to understand is beautiful about this model is that imagine all of these points in a circle where 1 goes all the way around and then 10 connects right next to 1. So now you can knock on any of these doors to get into the game. You can, like, this is tip number 9, but you can start here. If you don't know purpose yet, start here with your accomplishments, and then maybe you'll start to get some ideas about purpose. So you don't have to go through it in a linear way. We're laying them out in a linear way every Friday in 2024. Here we are, or Saturday for Sue. So we're going to discuss them one at a time, and we had to choose an order that we would discuss them, and that I would lay out the model. But yes, and another yes. If you want to start with goals, we could start there. As a matter of fact, when I'm doing 2 complimentary coaching sessions with a prospective coaching client, we do start with goals. I don't talk to them about purpose or gifts. I might be picking up on those things, but the purpose of the 2 sessions is to explain and then hold people accountable to setting goals. Then once they enroll in coaching, then we could go up or down to fill in the rest of the model, but we know what the goals are. So you could start anywhere on this model, and that's something that we haven't talked about too much, but your anecdote shines a light on that. So I wanted to go deeper for a second. Continue, Sue. Thank you.
Yeah, so that was one. That was one of not knowing where to start from a speaking perspective. And so this accumulation of accomplishments is a fabulous place. And the other lady was she was interested in being a guest speaker at events and felt that this framework would really help her get started. And so, I'm looking to engage with them and have a follow-up conversation, which will
really, really good.
Really
Keep going.
good.
Yeah, tell me more.
It was just I loved in the dinner itself, the theme of abundance and that sense of being able to give and share, which comes back to these are accomplishments that I've accumulated through my life, but now, which is something that we will talk about next week, of that giving and serving.
Oh, absolutely. Well, a couple things I have to feed back on that now. Not only do the accumulation of accomplishments and our making peace with how awesome that we are gives us the ability to list them out, check them out, and see them for the treasure trove of content that it provides us when it's time to actually write speeches, right? Or prepare for talks or prepare for events. So looking back, but what you just said is what the integrity game is all about. Is we need to know every second of the day how much we have to give to others. And that's what we're going to talk about next week. We close out the model of the integrity game with serve, 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 serve. I think by title in the book, it's Who Wins When You Win.
Yes. Yeah.
Who wins when you win? So we want to be intentional about the populations that we can serve moving forward. But here's the thing that I wanted to say. Brian Tracy, one of my mentors, I was so lucky, by the way, to be mentored by Brian Tracy earlier in my career. And you're one of the legends in personal professional growth, and spoken all over the world. And it's thank God I live in San Diego and he's here, and I was able to meet and network. And Brian Tracy got us into the ecosystem, and I opened for Brian Tracy one time. It was a thrill. I closed for Brian Tracy one time. That wasn't as fun because everybody followed him out the room, and I was left standing there talking to my. I swear to God, you want to watch 500 people leave a room, then speak after Brian Tracy. I was like, I had to give the speech, and the show had to go on. And I was watching everybody get up and follow Brian Tracy out of the room. And I'm like, okay, so all right. So mom and dad, thank you for staying here. You talk about making peace with being silly. Anyway, but here's I bring up Brian Tracy. So many fond memories. Thanks so much to Brian Tracy, or anybody that's been touched by Brian Tracy, you know what I mean. And he told me once, he said, weeds grow on their own. They need no help from us.
Yeah.
But fruits, vegetables, nutrients, that need, like we want to grow herbs, we want to grow fruits or vegetables, we want to grow sustaining things, like nourishing things, not weeds. But if we want to grow anything nourishing, that does need help from us. We do need to tend. We do need soil. We do need nutrients. We need to give the good stuff, the love. Maybe talk to your plants and they grow better. You got to give plants the love, right?
Yeah.
The nourishing things. So along those lines, seeing what we don't have is like a weed that grows on its own. That's going to happen automatically. It's going to be automatic for us to see what we don't have, for us to imagine what we don't have, or what I wish, I don't, I want, all of that. That's automatic. What we need to put our focus on, what we need to give attention to, is what we do have, which is what this tip is all about. When we can intentionally choose to be peaceful with our accomplishments, and to stack it up, and to write it out, and to update the resume, update the LinkedIn profile, make that humble brag post about, now all of a sudden we'll see it's not swimming around in our head competing with what I don't have, and where's the next level I want to go, and to keep up with the Joneses, and I'm smarter than with that person, I should have what they have by now, and all of that stuff that's automatic, right? We don't want it in our head. We want it out in front of us, able to share with others. And we're going to talk more about this next week, where we close out the integrity game. But there's a lot of value, both looking back and looking forward, when we talk about accumulation of accomplishments. And I just want to indulge myself again. I don't know why I'm indulging myself so much today, but I want to throw this Kluby snack up there on the board. Knowledge plus experience equals wisdom. And there's always wealth, always wealth in the wisdom.
Yeah.
All right, Sue. Well, I thought it would be a quickie today, but we're moving towards last call. But what do you got?
Oh, I just wanted to finish off by saying, what I love about what we've talked about is that nurturing that, tending to that, putting the effort into recognizing what those accomplishments have been, and we continue to build on. That's what brings the color of who we are to our conversations.
Yeah.
And we can do that with authenticity, with confidence, and get away from the gap that you're talking about, that there's this thing in the back of our minds, but I'm not as, I should be that person, or you can get away from that, which is where I think that performance starts to kick in a little bit, and we're trying to be somebody else instead of be ourselves. And
we don't want that. No way.
No, we don't. Because that it sabotages ourselves.
Yeah, and it distracts. The audiences are astute.
Yes.
Audiences are astute. Like the analogy is like the umpire in baseball. The best umpire in baseball, they say, is the one that you don't notice. When you watch a whole baseball game and you never notice the umpire, that's a good umpire.
Right. Yeah.
You follow? And same thing, there's an analogy there for this point that you were making is, well, I forget. I'm losing my train of thought now. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Sue.
That's all right. That's all right. No, that's all I wanted to say.
Mhm.
I think there is just so much value in spending time in looking at what our accomplishments are.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
what got us there.
Yeah, I wanted to give a quick shout out real quick to Tony Villasenor. Is a gentleman I've never met, but I'm sitting in his office right now at Caldwell Banker here in Encinitas, California, because he is lending his office for a meeting at noon that I've agreed to attend to, so long as I was able to use some office space to do the tip reading today. So shout out to Tony Villasenor. I can't wait to meet you in about 15 minutes. Thank you for letting me sit literally in his like there's pictures of his family right here, and I'm in Tony Villasenor's office, and he's a gentleman for letting me use his office while he's out getting pizza for the lunchtime. I don't know, very interesting. But no matter what, come rain, come shine, come networking opportunities and business development opportunities, I'm never going to miss my opportunity to connect with you, Sue, and read a tip every week this year in 2024. So last call, here we are. Are you ready? I updated my graphic. Last call for comments, questions, jokes, riddles, haikus, limericks, or expressions of gratitude. Last call before we wrap up for today.
I just want to say thank you. Great conversation. And I always love the unexpected that comes out when we do catch up. And we read the tip, but it's the piece that comes afterwards that is always so much fun.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about that? If we had read the same tip, like last night or 4 hours from now, totally different stuff would come out.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? It's so like I want everybody to understand repetition is key to communication. And wherever you are in your journey, that is the lens through which you're going to make meaning of all of this. So we love writing tips books because you could read one tip today and then pick it up 3 months later, read the same tip, and you'll get a different meaning out of it because you are at a different place in your life. So I just wanted to shine a light on the dynamism that these, the tips don't say it all. The tips don't cover it all. The tips don't go super deep or super, right? The tips just get the party started, and the party's going the entire time, right? So, all right, Sue, thank you so much. I love you so much. And for those of you out there that are watching the recording or chimed in live for any part of your day, thinking there might be something valuable there, let me check out what's going on. Thank you for chiming in. Send us a message. Reach out to us if there's anything we can do for you. I guess I'll just put this last thing out here to finish up. If anybody's interested in 2 complimentary coaching sessions, we talked about this earlier, 2 complimentary coaching sessions with either myself or Sue or an Integrity Game certified coach, you can go ahead. It says with Jeff Klubeck, but put it in there and put the notes, and we'll make sure that you're connected with the right person. There's a scheduling link that anybody can go and schedule a 90-minute session. If you're taking the time and you're watching and you see this and you want to get the first of 2 complimentary coaching sessions with an Integrity Game certified coach, right? And if you want me or if you want Sue, make sure you put that into the notes. But we've got some coaches that we've trained that can do the job. Yeah, but if you reference this show specifically or reference Get a Klu 52 for speakers, we'll make sure it's either myself or Sue that does these sessions with you. And we're looking forward to seeing how we can support. Sue, I can't wait to talk to you next week to figure out what your follow-up is with these ladies and how the Integrity Game, it's like, am I about to be a grandpa? Like you never, it's so exciting for me to see this model live and breathe all over the world. So thank you. And thanks to those of you out there that are chiming in on any level. We look forward to working with you as well. So that does it for another installment of Get a Klu in 52 for speakers with world-class coach Sue Mathieson, and I'm world-class coach. I should put this up there. I'm founder, author, Jeffrey Klubeck. Hi, this is me.
Yes.
And that's that. I don't have anything to Anyway, all right, Sue, big hugs to you, and I'll talk with you soon. Bye-bye now.
Okay, see you.